Thank you for watching Israel Update. If you would like to help us out in making a donation, please click the red link to give. Everything we do here is only possible because of your support. So whether it's live updates from Israel or teachings or missions or whatever it is that we're doing, this is only possible because of you. So thank you for donating, and let's go to the show. Hello and welcome to the Israel Update. I am so excited and privileged to have my amazing mother, Fiona Desfontaine, here with me in studio. This is the woman who taught me what I know about Israel and really imparted such a love for the nation and the land and the Word of God, and all that awesome stuff really, came from her. So I'm very excited to have her here with me in our LA studio. And, we've been to Israel a number of times together. She spoke with Kim at the Tower of David tour back in 2011, and we've been all over the country with Doobie, and we've done the whole thing together. So it's really, really awesome for me to have her here. So we're going to jump right in and start talking about a whole bunch of different stuff, and I know that this is going to bless you, whether you know a little bit or a lot about Israel. So thank you in advance for opening up your heart and letting God shine His light and revelation into you. So Mom, welcome.
Thank you, darling. It's lovely to be here.
Yes, so we've been talking a lot about a whole bunch of different stuff, but why don't we jump right in and you just go ahead and talk to me about the war for worship?
Yeah, just recently when I've been looking at everything that's going on and watching Netanyahu speaking to the UN, and also I think tuning in to CNN, which I do less and less frequently because I get so mad every time I look at them, and just the news channels are so prejudiced against Israel that I think all of this is stirring up in me again. And I think it's quite a good thing to bring things back to basics and to understand what it is that makes Israel the stumbling block to the nations that it is. And God said in Zechariah, He said, I'm going to make Jerusalem a cup that causes all the nations around to be drunk, or causes them to be reeling, which is like to be staggering with drunkenness. And when you're drunk, you're insane a bit. Fortunately, you've never been that. In my past life, I stumbled frequently. But so I know what it is not to have any sense of what is real and to go just according to your emotions. And that is what I see happening with the people around. There's no logic. There's no common sense. The fact that Israel, which is this minute dot in the middle of a world map, causes such animosity and hostility in people, there has to be a spiritual reason for it. And as far as my understanding goes, everything centers on the war for worship. God is the one who said the basic thing is God wants all people to worship Him. And the devil wants worship, and that's why he was thrown out of heaven, because he tried to make himself not just equal to God, but above God. And that rebellion caused him to be cast out. But that inherent obsession within him has never gone, and now it's focused on Israel.
Yes, and this is the thing. This is something we've spoken about a lot, and there has to be a spiritual reason for this degree of obsession, because it's unnatural. The hysteria that takes place, everything that's been going on with the United Nations, and this crazy obsession with this little nation and its people, there is a massive spiritual reason to everything. And like you were saying about how the devil craves worship. You're the one who taught me about Jerusalem being the place where God chose to put His name. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about the importance of Israel as a nation and what that means to God?
Certainly, because the thing is, we know that we're in the end times right now.
Yes.
And everything is going to focus on Israel in the end times. And it links back to exactly what you've said, Jerusalem. Because, you and I were chatting a bit before the program, and we're talking about how physical places are important to God. Like in Eden, that was where He placed Adam and Eve and fellowshiped with them. And after they were driven out of the garden because of sin, there was a period of time when there wasn't any specific place on earth that God identified. But after he'd created the nation of Israel, right back with Abraham, he said, I'm going to give you this land. And it was the promised land. And of the land of Israel, that was God's chosen geographical place. Within Israel, Jerusalem was the chosen city, and within Jerusalem, the temple was the chosen place. And that was where God said, I'm going to put my name there, and it's going to be there forever. And so all this comes down, what is going on in the world today, all revolves around this particular battle. Because God said, I want Jerusalem and I want that place where the temple is. And so, of course, that is where the devil has come and built a mosque. Not just one, but 2 mosques.
Yes.
And the idea of kicking the Jews out of Israel, annihilating the Jews, would come against the truthfulness of God. Because God said that is the place. And on the Mount of Olives is where he's going to return, when Jesus comes and puts his feet on the Mount of Olives. But what the devil wants to do is prove once and for all that God's a liar, and that God cannot fulfill the promises or the declarations that he's made. And so the war revolves around that specific Temple Mount, because the devil doesn't want any worship from the Jewish people going up to God or from the Christian people. He wants that removed so that only Islamic worship is offered to a false god.
I love the way you explain things. I've had this my whole life, just having these things explained to me this way. But it's simple in its basic form, in that this is a war for worship. Of the whole world, when God made the whole earth, he said, Israel's my land.
Yes.
Then he said, Jerusalem's my city. And then the temple will be my house,
yes,
my home. And that's where, when you look through the Bible, the glory of God filled that exact spot where the priests couldn't even stand to minister because the glory cloud of God was so thick. And it's in that exact place that the devil craves worship.
Yes.
It's the place God said, that's where I want to be worshipped from. Of course, all of us are living temples. We're here, we created, we live and breathe and have our being in him. But from a geographical perspective, Israel, Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, this is the place God chose as his and said, that's the place I put my name, that's the place I want to be worshipped. And so that is where the war is.
Exactly. And I know that a lot of Christians don't understand the connection between Israel and the church. And that is so sad to me. And I think it's something that we really should be focusing on.
Yes.
Because the church is now, it hasn't ever replaced Israel. But the Gentiles, by God's grace and mercy, have caused us to be grafted in as wild olive branches into the tree, the roots of which are the patriarchs. And it's the Jewish olive tree. And we've been grafted in. So it only makes common sense for the church to want Israel to fulfill all of God's promises, because, as Paul said in Romans, he said right now, he spoke about Israel just in 3 chapters,
yes,
and said that he wished he could be cursed, just that Israel would get to know the truth. But the point here is that with Israel, he said if they're breaking away, they're breaking off of their branches through unbelief, brought about such riches for the Christians, and that we've got salvation and we become joint heirs with Israel. He said, how much more will their grafting back in be for us? It'll be no less than the resurrection from the dead.
That's awesome. And I'm not the greatest fan of the Message translation, which I get from you, but I actually really love the way Romans 11 is written in the Message. And it's exactly what you were saying, where he says, if Israel's closing the door on the Messiah brought about a homecoming,
yes,
for the Gentiles, what will their acceptance of him produce?
Exactly.
What will it bring? What's going to happen in the world when that takes place?
Yes.
And so there's so much to look forward to, but really one of the points that you made, which I think is so incredible, and it's so important for us to realize this is about the reputation and track record of God. Israel is inextricably linked to the track record and reputation of God, and that is why the devil is so obsessed with Israel, and that is why you can see the mainstream media. There is this unnatural, insane obsession that doesn't make common sense, even if you just look at it factually. But there's this insanity that prevails, and it's because the devil wants worship from the place that God decreed, and it's because the devil is determined to spend, his entire being, the time that he's got really while this earth still exists, to say that God is a liar when that can never ever happen.
Exactly. And I think that, even thinking about that Islamic story that Muhammad ascended from the Temple Mount on a horse, went up to heaven, that is just a myth. It had to be from the place where God's name is.
Yes.
Was the devil is a liar. As truthful as God is, the devil is a liar. Which is whatever he tells you, you can know the opposite is true. And I just feel for anybody watching, if you're feeling at the moment as if things are hopeless, that's the devil telling it to you. And you can know that it's a lie, because he will always tell you the opposite of what is the truth. And so if he says it's hopeless for you, you need to know the truth is that God is breathing hope and faith into you right now. And so please receive that.
That's awesome. She's awesome. We're going to keep talking about this, but for this show specifically, I just really wanted my mom to talk to you about the War for Worship. Thank you for being with me today. And we're going to carry on. So make sure you watch next week, because next week we're going to be speaking to you about Islam and about the spirit of Antichrist and about the vessel that this war has taken on. And so you don't want to miss out on that next week. So thank you so much for joining us, and make sure to stay tuned. You can follow us with everything we're doing on israelupdate.org. God bless you.
Israel Update is brought to you by the generous supporters of the Israel Partnership. Because of their love for Israel, we are able to bring you this show and continue to sow into the nation of Israel and the Jewish people. For more information on how to become a sustaining partner, please click the Israel Partner banner below.